From 14 lonely years in a hangar to Oshkosh 2021, I've got to tell you the story of my beautiful little airplane, Sadie. She was manufactured in 2007 by the Zlin Aircraft Factory in the Czech Republic. She was test flown and shipped over to the U.S. to be united with her owner. However, he found out he had cancer and he never got to meet her. She sat in a crate until 2014, when she was assembled and put on her amphibious floats by Randy, the new owner, who had gotten her in his uncle's will. He taxi tested her, but never flew her. He had family drama that kept him from flying her. In January 2021, he decided to sell. I saw her on Barnstormers and tried to ignore, but finally called. In March of 2021, my daughter Haley and I drove down from Jacksonville to Merritt Island, Florida to make the deal. I would love to say we flew off into the sunset problem-free, but here's where the adventure starts. I did flights locally and got checked out for insurance. Mike came down and gave her a look over. On June 23, 2021, I flew her from Merritt to Clemson, South Carolina. On the way, I stopped in St. Augustine. One of the linemen ran out and said, "Something's hanging from your gear." Come to find out, it was the nylon covers for the bungees. I'd never seen bungees before. I snapped a picture and sent it to the mechanic that had gotten Sadie airworthy after sitting for so long, and he said, "Everything is good, carry on." After a couple more gas stops and finally landing at Clemson, everybody ran over to see the new airplane, and the mechanics at Clemson stopped dead in their tracks. They said, "Do not move that airplane 1 inch until you get new shocks." The bungees were safety wired instead of being pulled all the way from peg to peg. In comes one of Sadie's heroes to the rescue, Matt McSwain of Acme Aero. He reached out after hearing the story and said he'd put the new shocks on for me if I just flew her to their shop near Charlotte. I told him I would love to, but I was told I couldn't move her 1 inch. So he put the shocks in his Cessna 182 and flew them over to Clemson and installed them. And you know what? When he got there, Mike lifted the wings so they could jack the plane up, and bam, the bungee popped. A very close call. Matt installed the amazing Acme Aero shocks, and the mechanics at Clemson removed an analog oil pressure gauge that the mechanic in Merritt had installed when he was having issues with the Dynon D180 reading the engine sensors. The Dynon was working fine now. The Merritt mechanic had installed this oil pressure gauge with a brass fitting. This will become important later. They also tweaked the tail wheel. It wasn't braking at all in turns, and they also installed a new McFarlane throttle, as the original throttle had a kink in the cable and wasn't smooth at all. After the fixes, Mike and I left Clemson on our way to Oshkosh on July 22nd. We landed in Smithville, Tennessee and Paoli, Indiana for fuel and had been in the air for about 8 hours. Mike was flying for me from the back so I could take a little rest. He only has rudder and stick back there, no throttle, and he couldn't see past my head. All of a sudden I snapped my eyes open with a start. I smelled oil. It was all over the windshield. I asked Mike to find me a field fast, and he did just that. Off to our right, about 5 miles, was Stock Cunningham's beautiful private airstrip. Later, we looked at the ADS-B data, and we were on the ground in 4 minutes. Here is the landing and the aftermath. I had already started cleaning the oil off. So, we're flying along. I was actually taking a break. Mike was flying. The problem with that is he can't see from flying from the back seat. And I must kind of got my eyes closed, and I smell something. I'm like, "What is that smell?" He said, "I don't know." I look up and there's oil on the windshield, had just splattered up, I guess. We still had good oil pressure and oil temp. and everything. And I said, can you find me the nearest airport, please? And he did, super quick. And it's this wonderful field here, 2 runways, crop duster operation. The guy's name is Doc. And I landed pretty short. And by the time I stopped, she was smoking. And I cut it off real fast. Hopefully I saved her. I don't think she has any oil left in her though. Doc arrived in his side-by-side and said, "You must be having a problem since you didn't taxi up." He proceeded to get a tow bar and tow Sadie to his lovely hangar with tons of farm equipment, a Cessna 182, and an RV build in progress. He pressure washed the engine and found the culprit, that brass fitting I told you about earlier. He removed it, put oil in the plane, and we were out of there in 2 hours. We couldn't believe it. We made it to Kentland, which was only about 20 minutes away, and decided to stop for the night. Entering the traffic pattern, I spotted a paramotor. We landed, and then he did, and it was none other than dear friend Woody Hayes. What are the odds? We signed his trailer door, caught up for a bit, and then bid farewell. Come back for part 2, more emergency landings and fun fly-ins prior to Oshkosh. Thanks for watching.